Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew, But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, your host or life coach Maureen, as most of you know me. I am so happy everyone is here today. Thank you again for joining us. I appreciate each and every one of my listeners and each and every one of your feedback and reviews. We're so proud to say we are 5 stars on Apple and growing this community to help more people. So thank you, thank you, thank you for spreading the message. And with that being said, I have such a special guest with us today, and I was so happy when he reached out and I read his story. He's really the epiphany of why I wanted to do this in the first place. Was we all have tragedy, we all have struggle, and if we can take it and do good and help others, that's what we're here for. And so I want to introduce everyone to Collin Hughes. And Collin Hughes describes himself as a man who went after his dreams. As a child, he grew up with 3 dreams: to be a cowboy, a pilot, and an actor, which I love all of theirs. They're so varied. He rode bulls professionally for several years, competed against some of the greatest legends in the sport of professional rodeo. But on June 10th, 2022, his 15-year-old granddaughter killed herself and his world collapsed. On that day, he learned the true meaning of pain and is now on a mission to find any platform he can to talk about this sensitive subject with the hope of preventing other people from such a tragic end. And this is something that I really loved that Collin said, listeners. He said, I'm not a mental health professional or an expert on statistics, but I have been given the gift of public speaking. I have escaped death a handful of times throughout my life. After discovering my talent and love of public speaking, I always wondered why I was saved and what I was supposed to do. As soon as I heard the news about my granddaughter, he instantly knew exactly what message needed to be his mission. And in addition to his past and doing the public speaking, he's also a voice actor and podcaster. So, welcome, Collin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. You forgot retired airline pilot too. So
Oh, I didn't
yeah,
have that.
I've lived out all 3 of my dreams, and
That's a testimony right there that, you know what, go after them. Even if you have 3 different varied dreams, go after each one of them. Yeah, I didn't have the retired pilot on here. So
oh, is it
how that's cool.
where is that? It's on a few different places. Where is that bio at? I'll have to update
I
it.
I think it's just one you filled out on my questionnaire. So
Okay.
yeah. But no, that's amazing. So you've been on the ground getting trampled by bulls, you've been in the sky, in the clouds, you've been on a stage. I mean, you've covered the whole spectrum of life. So I think that's really, really cool. What do you
Thank
miss?
you.
What do you miss the most? Bull riding or flying?
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I think your body misses the flying more than the rodeo.
Well, yeah, and there's about 80 pounds of me that's never been on the back of a bull now.
I
Got a
know.
little extra weight.
It happens to all of us, doesn't it? I swear, once I hit 50, it was all over. So here at I Never Knew, of course, we talk about the story behind what made you really change and aspire to do what you're doing now. So I call it the knee story. It's that moment where you hit your knees. And obviously, we are going to talk about the suicide of your granddaughter, but let's talk about some of the other moments that you say that you escaped death.
What the first one that I recall is when I was a child. I can't remember how old I was, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there maybe. And we're having a family reunion with aunts, uncles, all the whole thing at Lake Manawan, right in Counts Bluffs, Iowa.
Okay.
And I'm in the water and I get caught in this whirlpool action, and I'm just going round and round and round, and I can't kick free, and I'm just terrified. And I thought for sure that, that I wasn't going to get out of this. And then I, right when I thought everything was done, somebody reaches in and he grabs my arm and pulls me out of the water. And I went running over to my parents and told my mother what happened. And she says, "There's nothing like that in Lake Manawa. You imagined it." And I ran next. I went to the campsite, or the picnic area next to ours, where I saw this man disappear into. And I described him, because I wanted him to tell my mother I wasn't lying about this. But nobody knew where he was. They didn't even know who he was.
What do you think? Was it an angel? Do you think it was
I
something from another
I
world?
beam me up, Scotty. No,
You know,
no,
it
I had just I don't know what to think of it. It's just, but was it miraculous that that man, was there at the very moment that I needed somebody?
yeah,
I think so.
I agree. And we'll
And then,
never know. We'll never know. There's no way to know.
yeah,
Things that there's all those, undescribable things or those unbelievable things that, whether it's Bigfoot or aliens, we don't know. We don't know everything, but I think that's amazing that it just wasn't your time. So we avoided drowning. So what's the next escape thing? Well, obviously rodeo, but anything else?
I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I was traveling from one rodeo to another, and I actually caught a ride with the stock contractor. That's the person who provides stock for rodeos.
Okay.
And I was riding in one of their tractor trailers, was hauling stock up to this next rodeo I was going to with them. And we pulled off on the side of the road to go across to a convenience store that was on the other side on this country road, or country highway. And we're going to go get something to eat. And I'm standing in front of this truck. My view of the highway is blocked completely. And I just start to step out, and somebody yells out at me, "Get back!" And just as when I turned, that kind of caused me to go back a little bit to see who was yelling at me and why. And just when I did that, a car went by at, 60, 70 miles an hour, and I could feel the air rushing off that car.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Just split second. 1 second could have changed
Yes.
the whole
Yep.
trajectory. Oh, I love those stories because, it's just we don't know. We don't know when everything's kind of, lined up. You never know from 1 minute to the next. So I want to talk about your granddaughter, and we're going to talk about obviously what happened to her, but I want to talk about also, I like to celebrate life. And so tell me about your granddaughter. Tell me about your relationship with her. Tell me how amazing and beautiful she was.
Okay. Well, that's a long story in and of itself. It's a little complicated too. I had 5 daughters.
Mhm.
My oldest daughter was a product of my youthful indiscretions. I didn't even meet her until she was 15 years old.
Oh, okay.
And so we were, on again. She was so angry at me for not being there, and
Did you know about her? Did you know about the pregnancy, or how did you find out to meet her at 15?
the state of Iowa contacted me and said that they needed me to do a blood test because there was myself and another gentleman that were that her mother had said were possibilities of being the father.
Okay. Okay.
And so I was given a court order to get a blood test, and I was 99 point some percent. This before DNA. I was over a 99. I was a 99.8% chance that I was her father.
Wow. Were you shocked? Were you absolutely just like you had 1 minute you didn't know, and then the next minute you have this teenage daughter?
It was scary.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my word. And that I'm sure that happens, a lot because we just get into these situations and, what do they call those situationships? So you got to meet her at 15. How did that go? How was that?
She was very less than enthusiastic to meet me
Yeah.
because, she
Yeah.
didn't know me from Adam. But so we were on again, off again, and she was always angry at me. The state had contacted me because her mother had been receiving welfare and they wanted their money back. So
Right.
they came after me, which reminds me of one conversation I had where she called me and said she wanted some money. And when I told her, that, I couldn't do that, she just starts yelling at me. "Well, I'm going to sue you for back child support." I says, "Honey, the state of Iowa has been already been paid thousands and thousands of dollars from me for all that."
Wow. Because she was getting assistance. So the state was the one that had to be paid back, not her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
So your granddaughter is her daughter then?
nope.
Oh, okay.
I do have, but I'm getting there. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. No, that's okay. That's okay.
Then I think about 2010, she reached out to me, and she had been diagnosed with cancer. And so we started drawing closer and closer and closer together. January 29th, 2015, I watched her take her last breath. And the last thing she ever said to me was that she loved me. And I do have a granddaughter with her who is in college now. She graduates. She's not sure she's going to graduate in December, work hard, or take it a little bit easier and graduate in May next year.
Oh my gosh. That's so great. That's such a
Yeah.
oh,
So
that
I
is
get,
amazing.
whenever she's driving down to see her parents, from college, I get, "Hey, Grandpa," I get these phone calls.
Oh, that's the best. Isn't that the best?
Yeah. Yeah. It is
Oh,
amazing.
I love it. I love it. Well, good. I mean, wow, that must have been just devastating because you finally sort of got
Yeah.
this relationship you finally
But
wanted.
I had that time with her.
Yeah.
I had that time
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah. And some closure, of forgiveness.
Yeah. And then my first marriage, I had 4 daughters.
Okay.
And I was not a very good person to their mother. I was kind of following in my father's footsteps of drinking and being a womanizer, that kind of thing, which, doesn't mix too good in a marriage, especially when I'm trying to change my life around, but I couldn't, I just kept going back to those kinds of ways, which, surprisingly, it wound up in divorce because of that.
I'm shocked. I'm
Yeah.
shocked.
Real shocker there, right?
Yeah, as a relationship coach, I'm so surprised that would be the end of the story there.
But when she remarried, she married a gentleman who was retired military, and they asked if he could adopt the girls so that they could have, his the insurance benefits and whatever other benefits that the children would have through that process. But it wasn't until after I signed the documents that I realized that I no longer had any right to even see these girls again.
Yeah. They didn't
And
explain
so
that to you? The lawyer didn't explain that?
I, ah, I don't think I got a lawyer to do it. They gave me the documents and I did it.
That's tough because yeah, that's a pretty when it comes to law, we don't always know, the ins and the outs. And I think your intentions were really good to make sure that they had health coverage and they were taken care of. But yeah, wow, that must have been tough. So what happened? Did you get to see them? Did they want to keep seeing you? Were they
Um,
angry?
that so they grew up feeling abandoned by me, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
In 2004, the second oldest of the two girls found me through Facebook and wanted to meet. So we met at visitor center of the Salt Lake City Temple.
Wow.
And that was a really good reunion. Then, she started getting, after a few months, she started getting pressure from her family about the relationship. And so it ended. I got an email from her sometime after that saying she wanted to try it again. I thought, well, okay, and it ended again. And then before my wife and I of 17 years now got married, she reached out to me again. And my wife, she's a social worker and she's all about relationships. Oh, honey, you have to. And I just, oh, I told her and I told her and I told her. And finally I says, I'll do it just to show you, just so I can say I told you so. I can't remember how long it was this time, but I didn't say it, but I could have.
Yeah.
And that was, that was about 2008. I think mm, or no, 20. Anyway, my granddaughter then was, about 2.5, 3 years old. Just,
Okay.
yeah.
And
But
this is her daughter.
yes.
Okay. So she was two and a
Yeah.
half, three.
Yeah. And so we, when we lived in Kansas, my wife and I, we drive up and visit. They were in the Omaha area. We took my daughter and my granddaughter to Nauvoo, Illinois, and for a big event that's going on there with the LDS Church, that they reenact, the saints, the Latter-day Saints there in Nauvoo and being driven out and all that. And it's a musical event, and we kept telling my granddaughter, we're going to a park where there's music. And in the middle of the when we're watching this that night, it's an outdoor presentation, and she's sitting on my lap, and she just fell asleep in my arms, and I held her out through the entire show, sleeping.
Oh.
But when we got her home, she goes, "Thank you for taking me to the singing park, Grandpa." The singing park, she called it.
Singing park. I love that. Now, did you get to maintain that relationship throughout the years then, and you didn't get to separate from your daughter again, or was it just sort of
Well,
off and
it
on?
like I said, I think it was 2010, it ended again.
Oh,
Yeah. I
it's
think.
so hard. What a
Oh,
roller
no.
coaster emotionally for you.
Oh, absolutely. Then in 2017, one day, just out of the blue, my wife asked me, says, if she contacts you again, what are you going to do? And I says, honey, I cannot do that. It's too emotional. And this time, my beautiful social worker wife actually agreed with me. And I'm like, whoa, really?
Those pesky social workers like your wife and I, we want it, and then we finally realize sometimes you can't force things, and sometimes you know what, you can love them, but you have to love them from over there. So that's tough, and it has to be reciprocated. It's very hard to love people that don't welcome and nurture the relationship back. So I can understand that. So when did you hear about your granddaughter?
Well, the next morning, I'm saying my morning prayers. I'm getting ready to go to the Vegas airport and catch a ride down to Houston, where I was based at as an airline pilot.
Mm.
And in the middle of my prayers, I swear it's like you're hearing my voice right now. It says, pray for your children. I says, "They don't want anything to do with me. I don't have children." "Pray for your children." And it kept repeating it more time, more firmly and more firmly. I said, "Okay, I'll do it."
Yeah.
And so I had no idea why I had that come into my mind to do that. And so I catch a ride to work, and all I had that day once I got to Houston was a flight to Detroit, Michigan overnight, and then go back to Houston to work another flight after that wherever I was supposed to go. And I'm getting off in Houston, deplaning the passengers. My phone rings, and it's a number that I'm not familiar with, and it was his daughter. She and her husband had been through a divorce a few months before that, I guess. He was living in Florida with my grandson that I have never met. She was living up in the Northeast with my granddaughter. And the children's father was killed in an automobile accident. My grandson was in the car with him. And he was in a hospital with internal organs exposed from a big gash in his stomach area, several broken bones, in a coma. And we didn't know if he was going to make it or not. Her mother wasn't able to go out to be with her. Her sisters weren't able to go out to be with her. And she just said that she needed somebody there. And I says, "I'm on the next flight." I didn't even do standby, or I didn't list for the jump seat, because a lot of times to Houston to Florida, that jump seat's even full. So,
Yeah.
but so I bought a ticket. And the first time I met my grandson, 7 years old at the time, he was lying in a hospital bed in a coma.
Wow. Oh my
And
gosh.
he's doing great, by the way.
Oh, good. He recovered, fully
Oh
recovered.
yeah, he did. He did. And
Yeah.
he is a pistol.
He's like his grandpa, I think. He definitely is. He's going to fight. He's going to beat, death like you did. It's not his time yet. So his sister is in the Northeast with mom.
Oh,
And
they were in Florida at the hospital with him.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's down there with their mother.
Okay.
And I just expected the first things out of my granddaughter's mouth would be, "Where have you been, Grandpa?" But it wasn't. And every time I spent a lot of, time with her in Florida because so her mom, could have a break and just relax too, if possible.
Yeah.
And every time her mouth opened, I thought, "Okay, here it comes. Here it comes." But no, she just accepted me and loved
Oh.
me. And just this amazing, amazing, wonderful young lady.
I feel
Just,
like is she kind of like one of the few people besides your wife that just didn't cast judgment on you, but just love that you were there,
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God, I'm gonna cry. You're making me cry.
She,
Oh, and that's what she's here for.
oh,
That was her being your angel on earth, is to let you know that we all make mistakes and that it's okay and that forgive yourself.
and
And
her father had two funerals, one in Florida where he was living and all the people that knew him there, and then his family was up near Omaha, Nebraska area, and that's
mm,
where he was buried. And so my granddaughter was going to go up there and stay with one of her aunts so that my daughter, could focus on what she needed to with my grandson.
mhm.
And so I bought the airline tickets for us and went and flew up there with her. In the night we had an early flight out of Fort Lauderdale, and I had a really nice two-room suite that I had gotten there in Fort Lauderdale on points even.
So
But
this was now your wife, your granddaughter, you, and your grandson was now out of the hospital and coming back
no,
too?
no,
No,
he was still in the hospital.
okay, okay.
Yeah, he was in the hospital for months.
Oh, okay. And your daughter stayed there with him?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going with my granddaughter up to just me and her up to her and me. Get it
Mm.
grammatically correct.
Okay. So it's
Going
just the
from
two of
Houston,
you.
going from Fort Lauderdale to Omaha, and I remember she loved, loved, loved to swim. So of course I took her down to the swimming pool. And I got this picture of her where she's just sitting on the edge. And even through all the stuff that was going on in her life, she had this glowing look on her face and this smile just radiated. Just,
Joy. Just she was so happy to be swimming. Oh, I
oh,
love
yeah.
that. I love that you had that time alone too with her,
I did too. And my wife and I, when she's 12, we took her to Hawaii.
Yes. Yes.
And that was an amazing trip. She was just, this child asked for only one thing on this vacation. And that's if she could, we'd take her to a store where she could buy herself a bathing suit. Didn't ask us if we get it or anything like that. So we took her to a store and she's looking around and she found one that she really, really liked. And then she looked at the price tag and says, "Oh, that's a lot of money though, Grandpa." And I said, "Well, do you have that much?" "Yeah, I do." I said, "Well, then get it." And I says, "Well, she had to have money left over for food or something like this." "We've got all the meals, honey. You don't have to worry about it." And it was over $100 for a swimsuit.
That's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot for,
So
12 years
she
old.
go
That's a lot.
she goes walking up to the counter and pulling out her money, but right behind her was old grandpa pulling out his credit card.
Saying there's no way in heck I'm letting you pay that, girl. This
Exactly.
it's on grandpa. So let's talk about, as the years went by, you stayed in contact with her
Oh,
until
absolutely, yeah.
okay.
From
Okay.
that time
Oh,
where her
great.
brother was in the hospital and for the rest of her life, we were, you know, they were living in the Northeast for a while, and it uh, it just seemed like little miracles happened where I could do things for these children.
Yeah.
One of them was they were living up in the Northeast, and my daughter called me and said that my granddaughter had come home just really, really upset. And she asked her what was wrong, and she said that there was a daddy-daughter dance at school. Says, and her daddy never took her to anything that like that when he was alive, and now he never will.
Oh.
And it was on that coming week, a Saturday evening, and I was scheduled to work a 4-day trip ending Saturday. And after my work was done on Saturday, there was only one flight I could catch to get up there in time. And Friday night, I had a lot of delays. And when I got into Houston on Friday evening, I was timed out of duty time. I could not work the overnight flight wherever it was. So the company had to put a reserve pilot on it, which meant my Saturday morning flight
Canceled.
all gone.
Yes. Yes.
And there was one flight left out of Houston going to Boston. And it it was right at the end of the boarding time. I thought, maybe I'll get lucky. And I hightailed it over there. The flight was delayed for 30, 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And so
Oh.
I got up there Friday night, drove up to this area where they were living, got a hotel, and got to spend all day Saturday with all three of them. and took her
How
to the daddy-daughter
great.
dance, and so, yeah, some wonderful, wonderful memories.
Oh, that just melts me. It melts me. And that's the thing. You were there when you were able to be there. It's the opportunities weren't there until you were allowed to give in the way that you were able to give. In other words, when you were allowed to be in their lives, you were fully engaged and fully there. So you got to go to the daddy daughter dance. So she sounds like she was a very happy child,
He
and
was,
and everything was going well. So did it
yeah,
really surprise you when you got the news, and how did you get the news, and were you just as shocked?
I, got a call the morning of June 10th from my daughter's phone. I thought, I answered, "Hey, honey, how you doing?" And it was her husband, and I knew something was wrong, but I had no clue it was gonna be that bad.
Yeah.
And when he told me, I'm just yelling and screaming and wailing, crying harder than I ever had in my entire life, even harder than when I lost my daughter. People say that the hardest thing for some a parent to go through is the loss of a child. Losing my daughter was extremely painful. It was nothing compared to the pain of the loss of my granddaughter. But within the first few seconds of hearing that news, I looked, as we said, for years I've been trying to come up with a topic to talk about where I could use my gift of public speaking and my love of it. But I think of a topic, oh no, that's no good. I can't. I wanted to find something where I could speak about passionately. And to this day, I still haven't found it. But on June 10th, it found me.
In the worst way.
Yeah.
Did she leave a suicide note? Did her mother give
No,
you any ideas of
nothing.
anything she was going through?
The only thing that we knew is she was on antidepressants, and her mom thought she was taking them, but after she passed, found all the extra pills that were there because she wouldn't take them. So
What does your gut tell you of why she took her own life?
I really don't know.
No. And it's hard. I think that's the question anybody who's been through this with a loved one who commits suicide is, we want the why, as if that's going to make it any better, right? It doesn't bring them back, but you want that sort of closure, like, oh, okay, if they were going through this, then I can kind of understand. But what do
Yeah.
you tell people when you do your public speaking? What do you tell people who've gone through this, and how do they move forward? How have you moved forward?
It's it's one step at a time. It's the thing to remember is even in your darkest times, hope and love still do exist. It truly does. Because I took a course, QPR. The QPR Institute has a course that costs $30. They call it their gatekeeper course to teach people how to deal with somebody who's having suicidal thoughts. And one thing, everybody who's ever thought of committing suicide, who's ever attempted of suicide, or those that we know, who have succeeded, but, maybe talked about it beforehand. One thing they all have in common is they believe for whatever situation that they're in, that there's no hope for them anymore because of whatever situation that is. And it's, even in your darkest hour, there's something good. In this case, with my daughter, my granddaughter, I mean, the funeral was in a small town in Nebraska where they lived. And the funeral home had asked people to send in pictures of her. And the funeral home director, really not knowing the family at all, and they'd receive hundreds and hundreds of pictures. I've heard like 600 pictures of her. And out of all these pictures, the funeral home put together a video, handpicked different pictures to make a video with. And about 3/4 of those pictures was with her in our home together with my wife and I. When we took the kids to Universal Studios in California, and when we took her to Hawaii, 3/4 of them. And so, I have these 3 other daughters who all have children. And now this video's out there with their cousin doing all these things and spending time with me. And all of a sudden, all these other grandchildren know who I am.
Oh my gosh. And they're the ones that were really opposed to your daughter having that relationship with you, and your daughter continued to push forward to have that relationship with you, right?
Yeah. I don't know the dynamics behind it, but so
Yeah.
I don't want to, make anybody have hurt feelings over. It's like,
No, no, no. But I
yeah,
remember
no,
you said that your daughter was getting, some
yeah.
flack for having the relationship early on with you. And so that's,
I don't know how it went down, but it just,
yeah, that's really neat though. Cause see, all of those things, sometimes that tragedy just opens up those doorways and those windows to forgiveness and to moving forward and wanting to have that connection with their grandfather. So now you have relationships with all of your grandchildren, or
I'm getting there.
yeah.
So in the funeral, the front row of pews was my daughter, my grandson, and some other people close to her. Then I was sitting right behind her. Right behind me was my oldest daughter. The only thing she had said to me thus far when I saw her earlier was hello.
Wow.
And she was sitting back there with her 16-year-old twins.
Wow.
And one song just really, really got to me. And I'm just leaned over, just crying and crying. All of a sudden, I felt a hand on my back, caressing and stroking my back. And then after that, while that's still going on, another much smaller hand on my back. Getting that comfort from after the service was over, I'm standing next to her, my granddaughter lying there. And of course, I'm having a moment, more than a moment. And the oldest daughter from my youngest daughter came up to me and says, "Do you need a hug?" Yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
Later that day, my oldest daughter uh, reached out to me saying that her 16-year-old daughter wanted to meet me, but made me promise time and time again, understandably so, that this was a lifelong commitment.
Yeah, you can't come and go.
Yeah,
You got to
that's
be
right.
there.
Exactly.
But you've already
Exactly.
proven with your granddaughter that, if they'd let you in, you would be there. And I
Yeah.
love that she wanted to meet you.
And so the internment was on Sunday at a cemetery that was like a half a mile or so from the house that I grew up in on a farm in Iowa.
Mm.
And during the services, my wife leans over and she says, "Honey, do you realize that this is Father's Day and all 4 of your daughters are here?"
Oh, wow. What did you feel in that moment when she said that?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, because you're not in the emotional space of realizing that. And
Yeah.
yet, and, and,
Only my
and
wife would have noticed that.
right? And the beauty of it is your granddaughter brought everyone together. That beautiful little
Yeah.
girl brought everyone together.
Then After the graveyard services, my oldest daughter and her daughter come up to me and we get introduced. And the first thing that this child, she's 16 at the time, but looks like she's about 11 or 12. She's just this tiny, skinny little thing. And the first thing she says to me is, "Are you a good man now?"
Oh my goodness. What did you say?
It was such a relief to be able to look in this child's eyes and say, "Yes, I am." She says, "Good." And then she reaches out and hugged me.
Oh my God. That's like brutal honesty. And
Oh, yeah.
I love children and animals for their just, it's just out there, no
And
filter.
this child is so funny. We text almost every day.
Oh,
For the first few months, it was absolutely every day, but now it's just, every couple of days or so. And she sends me these random text messages that are just, you know, come from her mind. What was it the other day? It was, if I made a spear or a saber and I gave it to a friend and found out they were a serial killer and used a common, ordinary kitchen knife for the murders, I would, even though murder is really, really bad, but I would be offended that they did not use my spear.
your granddaughter and my grandson, who is 15 and a half, their brains work exactly the same. I think they would make a perfect couple because that's like the kind of thinking that my grandson has.
I just,
That's
I says, where do you get this stuff from? She says, imagination and showers. Like, what's a shower got to do with it?
they do their thinking. Oh, that just tickles me because she sounds like
Oh,
seriously the female version of my grandson, who we have guardianship of now. So that is so dang cool. So I love that. So now you've got to establish, and we're gonna wrap it up here, but we're as again, I think tragedy brings healing. I think things that are super painful can bring good things, and we can see if we're focused on what's good, and if we stay focused on what's good. It's not about your granddaughter's death, it was about her life and how she brought everyone together, and now you have this brand new opportunity to have a relationship with all of your grandchildren, and I'm just so happy for you. I think that's amazing. So how are you doing public speaking? Are you going to schools and talking? Is that what you're
I'm putting that together now. I just finished the PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to use.
great? Oh, I love that.
Schools, churches, universities.
Yeah. What would be your number one helpful tip for helping either the youth or someone who is like a parent of someone that is suicidal, having suicidal thoughts? What's your number one suggestion?
Is well, mental health is it's such a stigma, even in today's world, and people just they don't want to talk about it. And as a pilots especially, because if they see even a counselor and they have to report that when they do their FAA medical. The FAA only allows 4 different types of antidepressants, and that wasn't even until 2011 or 2010, I think. But anyway, somewhere in there. But
Yeah.
and so it was banned all these years, and then the things that you have to go through to do it is crazy. And give you one really good example of what happened. There was a young man at University of North Dakota working on his ratings to be a career pilot, left on a flight by himself and flew the airplane into the ground,
Oh,
ended his own life. And the one of his roommates talked to his father on the phone, who was an airline captain, and he told his father that he's probably going to have to get some therapy because he doesn't know how to handle this. And his father said, "Don't do that; you'll ruin your career."
wow.
And so that's as a pilot, who's been through things. I'm really going to focus on aviation schools a lot. Plus, not exclusively,
Yeah.
but the biggest message I have is that take care of yourself. Hope and love do exist, no matter what's going on in your life. Hope and love do exist. That QPR I told you about is question, persuade, refer. Question somebody, and it's not like, hey man, are you gonna kill yourself? You thought about that? Or it's just point blank. Are you having suicidal thoughts? Have you ever thought that you just don't want to wake up in the morning? And then
Oh,
listen. They're going to open up and they're going to listen. One of the biggest myths about suicide is if you talk to somebody about it, you're going to want to do it more. No.
no, no.
And so, and the best way, I think, if a lot of younger people, especially in these days, they just feel that either there's so much pressure at home because they feel that they have to do everything just right because they've always been told you can do anything you want to,
Yeah.
but they don't hear it's going to be hard work. Here's what you're going to have to do. Michael Jordan says he had 9,000 missed free throws. So his big deal is he says that his success was made out of his failures. And
Yeah.
kids today don't know how to handle failures. And so it's
No.
some of the, the druggy kids who are taking their own lives. It's it's the straight A students, the football stars, young people like this, or they just feel like, or, children who feel neglected for whatever reason. It's that they feel that there's no love at home. But I got to tell you, my biggest message to them is love and hope do exist. If you can't find it at home, go somewhere where you can find it. And I'm not talking about your friend at school. So, yeah, man, I thought about doing that before. Yeah. Almost did it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not who you want to be talking to. You want to be
No.
talking to somebody who's going to listen and give you an outpouring of love because that love does exist. If you can't find it among friends, if you can't find it among family, go down the street, go to a church, go to a synagogue, go to a mosque, go to a youth center, anywhere where there's a responsible adult who is going to show you that love does exist, and they're going to work with you and they're going to help you. They're going to help you get the help.
Yeah.
Because if you need to go on medications, I don't care what you do. It will, it, it can absolutely be a life and death choice. Choose life, not death.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said. And it's about just take action. If you feel there's no hope and there's no light at that end of the tunnel, just I have experience with my daughter having depression and being suicidal, and I've had to call a crisis line and have her admitted. And they don't see this light at the end of the tunnel. And I could sit there all day long until I was blue in the face and say, but you have so much to live for. You've got children and you've got a good family. They don't want to hear that because they don't see that. But one of the things that she said to me that I loved when I said, what advice would you give others who are in this manic depression and in this depressive state and even suicidal? And she had said to me, Mom, I just had to force myself to go do something. So it was always action. Just even if you don't feel like it, do the opposite of what you feel like doing. So if you feel sad, it's one of the things I talk about in my coaching. Like, it sounds crazy, but we do these unorthodox things. If you're really in a bad way, get up and dance, because sometimes your physical changes your mental. Go for those runs, go for that walk in nature. Sometimes you can counter your mental. Even if you're in that darkest place, taking action, movement, kind of, just, you can't help it because you're going to produce some of these endorphins and some of those chemicals that help to get you out of the more despair and get you into maybe still sad, maybe still unmotivated, but we want to move you up the ladder to being in a better place. And
Yeah,
that's
could I talk real quick about something else that I
sure.
discovered myself?
Yeah.
My wife and I talked about, getting a pet, when I'm having Blue, I thought, and then so we thought all I knew about was emotional support animals. And if you go online, if you haven't heard of it, there's a lady who tried using that Peacock as an emotional support pet to get on a flight. And as an airline pilot, well, I hated those things, but the FAA changed it to where you cannot take an emotional support animal on a flight anymore.
Yeah.
It has to be a service animal and a service animal only. And there's dogs that have been trained to be psychiatric service dogs. They actually perform functions for somebody. Remind you to take your medications or whatever. They can even, with a special device, a dog can even call 911 for you.
Yes, and there's PTSD dogs that support for
Yeah.
PTSD, and they do have to be certified. I mean, really certified. They're very stringent on it. My own opinion, because my entire brand is based on dogs, my books are based on dogs, my everything is based on dogs. My opinion is that every animal is a support animal if it brings you joy, if it gives you comfort, if it gives you some kind of a boost mentally and spiritually and emotionally. I think every animal is an emotional support animal. So being able to decide this one's a service animal just because it can medically sense things like low, like high blood sugars and stuff.
Right.
It's hard to make, differentiate. But
well, the biggest thing about them is actual service animal. You can take on flights with you. You can take them into the hospital. You can take them anywhere except into an operating room.
Yeah.
In my research, I stumbled across a place called the Malinois Foundation.
Yep.
They train and place dogs with people, veterans, women sufferers, children with needs, and first responders. Yeah. And they're just an amazing organization. And part of my research, I found that of all the people who have these types of dogs, 82% of them report a reduction in suicidal thoughts. After 18 months, 1/3 of these people no longer have any of the criteria to match PTSD. And 92% report a reduction in medications.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I know. I'm right there with you. I feel like with all of the dogs in shelters that need homes and all of the people that need emotional support, gosh, if I had the money and the means to get them all together and everybody gets matched up with a dog for free, I'm completely on that soapbox with you because I'm all about it. And I know because my dogs saved my life. My dogs literally changed my entire view of who I am and taught me how to love myself unconditionally. And that's what I wrote the books on. Well, I am so glad to meet you. I think you're doing an amazing thing. And I love that you are focusing on an area that you especially are familiar with. And like you said, and the aviation, I think you understand that. And I always tell people just stay in the lane that you know. And because you're gonna speak the most passionately and knowledgeably about the thing that you don't have to go to school for any of it. You lived it. That's your school. That's your degree. You lived it. And so you're such a joy, Collin. Thank you so much. And I'm just so privileged that I got this hour of your time and I got to know your grandchildren. I'm so happy that all the doors are open now for you to really nurture all of those relationships with your grandkids and your daughters, and you deserve it. And I'm happy that you have forgiven yourself for the past and you're embracing what your granddaughter left was a legacy of love and a legacy of hope that you can bring to others and they can hear this and carry it forward. You're just the pebble in the lake and then the ripple just goes out. So I thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out to you for, I don't know, help or advice or anything for speaking engagements, anything, where could they reach out to you?
Collin at stopsuicide.life.
Collin at stopsuicide.life. Life.
Yes.
How neat. I've never heard of
Yeah,
a
I know.
life.
I looked for .com, .org, .this, .that, and I dropped down and said .life, and I got stop teensuicide.life and stopsuicide.life.
Love that. Love that. That's so beautiful. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. I hope you enjoyed Collin as much as I did. I just think he had so much information for us. And listeners, there is a suicide hotline that you can always call. I will put that on this episode. We'll put that in Collin's bio information or description of the episode. So if you do know anyone, or if you yourself are feeling suicidal, we're here to help you. And I just want everyone to know that what Collin said was hope and love do exist, even in the darkest moments. So we're here for you. And so thank you all for listening today. I think you're all fabulous. And I love you so much for being here, for sharing this. Spread the word, get this community growing even more. Don't forget to find my books on Amazon or on my page for any coaching, working on any of the mental health issues that we all deal with, struggles, recovering, anything. I'm now also working on working with autistic spectrum clients. So I'm really excited about that. So for anything dating, relationship coaching, anything that involves life and needing some hope and some goals, I'm at lifecoachmaureen.com. Of course, my books are My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and My Dog is My Relationship Coach. Third book is in the works, coming out at the end of 2023. And do not forget to go get some fun, healthy products and gifts for your furry babies at our online boutique, mydogiseverything.net. So I just created a brand new puppy treat, healthy treat, and it is peanut butter and jelly treats, and the dogs are going crazy for them. So anyway, go visit that, go buy some stuff for your friends. I love you all. Take care of each other, take care of yourself, and most of all, take care of those furry babies. Till next week, guys. We'll talk to you later.